There we go. We are live today on the Truth Proof live stream. So welcome everybody onto our Sunday night interactive. So we got Paul and we've got the Rev. Hi guys.
All good, Les. And hi, Rev. How's it going?
Yeah, not so bad. How are you both? Good?
Yep.
Yeah, busy old week, and I think it's same for everybody, innit? You know, everybody's in the same boat. It's just Sunday tonight. You know what we're doing, people. Just fire some questions at us. Tell us about what you're interested in within the subject. We're not going to have all answers. I think everybody knows that. All we're doing is we're all in the same boat here. We're all searching for, and I can hear myself now. One sec. So yeah, let's just fire away. So as we know, other week we were out in Forest with Paul, and we had a interesting experience in there. That were okay, weren't it? And today I've met someone, a guy called Carl and his wife. I've been up onto Clifftops early doors this morning and ended up at the lighthouse at Flamborough, and more sightings off Flamborough Head. Explanations on a postcard, please, because I haven't got a clue what it is that people have seen, and there's a good cross section of community that's seen these things. I mean, this guy, he's come back. He's come back this weekend, because he's just intrigued by what he saw earlier last month in early September, when they went up to the lighthouse and they sat at a seat looking out to sea, and staple sighting that people are used to seeing out there, huge orange sphere just appears, not flow from anywhere, not disappeared from into the distance like a plane would, no navigation lights, just appears, disappears. He said it looked like it disappeared and just instantly appeared in another part of the sky, and his explanation were about 4 inches away, 100 mil away. And his wife's got binoculars out, and she's looking at them, and then suddenly 3 appear. But he were keen to stress that they didn't appear in like 1, 2, 3. It just sort of morphed into 3. And I know that myself and Les, when we've spoke to these witnesses up and down coast at Hornsey, they've been talking about these spheres just splitting into multiples. Need to stress, because I said to him, well, how can you be sure it's not a flare? You know what I mean? But they're going up and down. Flares don't go up and down. They're not illuminating the sky around them. So we've got these sightings. You know, I've been looking at this now for years and years, and I haven't got a clue what we're looking at. And they're in all Coast Guard logs, you know, for every decade, as I've said before. But it's been prolific for the last few months with this, and with the amount of people that's been seeing them. But it's primarily the colours orange. Yeah. And we heard, who were we talking to? Mike Kelland. Mm-hmm. And some of his sightings started with orange spheres, or the accounts that they were getting, and orange flashes in the sky. So I don't know. Has anybody got any views on that? Has anybody got any questions for us, you know, about your own experiences? And it doesn't have to be anything to do with what I'm talking about now, but just fire them at us, because that's what we're about tonight. You know, there's no great detailed stories.
A question from me then, Paul. Because we covered some of the accounts of these orbs, lights, orange lights in the sky, and it was in a certain direction, weren't they? Now, the latest one that you've got in the geography state of it, where was it on the coast, on the east coast of England?
It were directly. It were northeast off the lighthouse.
Okay. Because I think the other accounts were looking more like
the others were down towards Hornsey, Tunstall, you know. But it's the full stretch at north and east Yorkshire coast, and there's been some sightings inland as well, and no doubt it'll just stop. And I would imagine where it's funny that when these sightings were occurring, on one at nights, Rev had got a sighting and some footage of something, but it weren't orange, were it?
No, but they were. You can see different colours, so right. They sort of went. Yeah, they were changing colours within them as they were moving, but they whizzed into 1 and then split off into 3. And there've been a lot of other sightings there still is ongoing in this area. of similar sort of orange lights, triangles as well. Somebody had a triangle that they filmed, an orange triangle. So it's
fascinating. And I went up there with 2 military guys a few weeks ago. One of them got quite an important job within aviation, should we say, and other guys retired and used to work with radar and things. I mean, he might even come in chat. But I was with Jack. I've no fear in saying, I won't say other one's name, but I was with Jack, and we were at Bempton on one at nights, and he's looking at the phone app. Everybody's looking at the phone apps, and obviously sometimes we can see aircraft in sky and it's not showing them, and transponders are turned off. So, we've got an explanation for it. But we're looking at a solid white light over, it looks like it's over Old RAF base at Bempton, but it's not. It's further on towards Speeton, this solid white light that's moving about in sky. And when he's looking at his phone, it's showing some typhoons are up. 2 typhoons are in vicinity. So I immediately thought, well, that's what it is. We can only see one, but that's what it is. No navigation lights, just a solid ball of white light. But he was quick to point out, and if he's in chat, he can explain this better than me. But the typhoon does not have a solid white light on it unless it's coming into land. So he was baffled. He's been left baffled by that one. And he spoke to his friend who works with fast jets, or worked with the fast jets in America, and just got confirmation of it. So quite what we were looking at, and let's not forget, it could be military tech. We don't want to live with our heads so high in clouds that we believe in everything, some kind of alien visitation. But it were an interesting one. But have we any questions, Les?
Yeah, I'll come on to some in a minute. I just want to point out that in the last couple of weeks that we've tracked these dual twin prop planes, and they're actually used as military, and they're flying, back and forth along the coast, Paul. So I mean, they're obviously looking for and surveying something, aren't they?
They're interested in something. There's been I don't know whether it's still out there, but going on for a month, there's been a research vessel out there off Filey, Bempton and Flamborough. Just this unmanned catamaran-shaped craft that's about 22 feet long, I think. I think it was called the X-20. And I'm not bothered saying where it's from, but that's had side scan sonar on it, cameras on it, all sorts of equipment. And it started off just about under cliffs and slowly made its way out to sea. Once again, all perfectly rational. They could just be mapping seabed and just monitoring everything. It's hard to say what the reasons are. It doesn't have to be otherworldly, does it?
No.
But what we got there, Les? Go on. All right.
Weirdest anomaly is the weirdest anomaly around the north and east of Yorkshire, in your opinion?
Well, Sunak, he's probably the biggest anomaly, isn't
he? Well, occasionally, yeah. So I talk cryptid, so we know where you're going with this one. But I would have thought these cryptid sightings aren't weirdest, because there's no doubt that people are seeing something.
I think he's talking about cryptids, Paul.
I know he's not, but I'm looking at his name, and I talk cryptids, and I'm imagining that's. But for me personally, Les, I'd say they're the weirdest things that are reported out there. To be honest with you, I mean, the big cats. Let's face it. I think you've got to be living under a stone if you don't believe that they're at large in the UK now. There's too many people seeing them to say that they're not. And for anybody in chat that comes up and says, well, I've never seen one, or how come everybody's got a phone and don't see one, I'll draw you straight back to the man who lived in Danes Dyke for 13 years. We only did it other week. And he saw one twice in 13 years and he's there 24/7. So if that's all he can see, Joe Public's not going to have a better chance at it, is he? But so the cats are here. The UFO. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, for me, the weirdest accounts are the dogmen that have. There's one with an earring, one that had footwear on. I think there's another one that had a pair of trousers or something, or dressed from the waist down. It's those to me are. You've got a real strange subject that's then taken a step further because it's somehow got this, like the human connection then by having jewelry or clothing on.
Yeah. The one with the earring were on another podcast that I listened to, and it fascinated me because this guy told this amazing account, and in America, he said, and we had an illegal firearm in the car. They shouldn't have been carrying it. Young men. And they weren't doing anything illegal, by the way. They were just out sort of doing what, I don't know, just having a few beers and just in the darkness. And they came across this thing. He says, and one of them pulled the firearm. He said, and it looked at him. He says, and in his mind, he knew it was saying to him, "Don't you dare," as though it knew what it was. The friend had collapsed at in very close proximity to where this thing was, where it appeared, and he just collapsed. He were unconscious, and everything had come away from him, every body function that you can imagine. So we don't have to go in details there. And he said it were behind some nettles and thistles. He said, and this story, we're condensing it into 2 minutes. He said suddenly they could see red lights in the thistles, and this thing turned round allegedly and looked into the thistles. And as it did, he said, and he told this interesting story. He says, but now I'm going to blow all my credibility. He says, because I'm going to tell you something. And he says, I don't know whether to tell you. He says, but he did. He says, and when it turned, he said, I'm sure it had an earring in. and like you think, oh Jesus, that's one step too far. But then you think, well, is he on the level? Because he's come out with this at the risk of blowing. Is he telling his truth? He said, but when it saw the red lights in the thistles, he said it turned and ran away from them. He said, but everything just laid down as it were running, and then just came back up like corn in wind. So it's almost though it had no substance. Do you know what I mean? They're looking at something that's holographic, even though it looks solid and tangible. And that throws light on the movement of these things as well. You know, when people talk about them gliding, I mean,
and the smoothness of it, it's like they don't have joints that cause you issues.
No, it's weird, and you couldn't run through a cornfield. This weren't corn; it was nettles and thistles. But you couldn't run through them, and they'd just slowly come back up like they're in a breeze. You know, you just couldn't do it, could you? But that's how this person described it. So that's not I Talk Cryptids. That's not the weirdest thing that's happening around our way, I don't suppose. But it's an interesting account that sort of Rev just revived.
Well, I'll stay with the lights for the moment. Patricia Adams Wright is asking, Paul, did they start off as being white lights?
No, they're very vivid orange. And what's interesting about them, Pat, is that they don't illuminate anything around them. You know, and I've read a lot of the lifeboat logs. And I don't just mean for our area. I've had a chance to look at quite a few now, moving further up coast. And they're talking about seeing these lights and suspecting that the flares, boat in distress or a plane in distress, but nobody's saying anything about these lights, you know, filling air with light and doing what a flare's supposed to do. So they're a vivid orange, Pat, but they're not illuminating anything around them, and they're not flying from anywhere. They're just appearing. And in some instances, like Carl told me today, this one became 3. He said, and it didn't go 1, 2, 3. He said it just became 3, just expanded and became 3. And then they switch off. And just to stay with that, because I was telling Carl today, there's a amateur photographer, a guy who teaches photography called Brian Lancaster. He'll not mind me mentioning his name because he gave me full permission to use photograph, and I really thank him for that. And he was at North Landing with a group of his students, teaching them time-lapse photography or showing them the mechanics of it. And I think he said, Les might even remember this, I think he said it was set up for 29 seconds. And he's got a decent camera. It's on a tripod. He's got a remote and takes a picture. And whilst I haven't got the seconds in my head, people. So let's just say 9 seconds in, an orange sphere of light appears. One of the students says, "What's that?" And they're looking at it, and he's puzzled. He said, "I don't know. I don't know. It's just stationary." 15 seconds in, another one appears at the side of it. Now he's interested. And he's thinking, good God, I hope this takes picture. I hope it takes picture. And I think in final part of the 29-second sequence, another one appears, and there's 3. And takes the picture, and he's got them. Now, I'm not brilliant with cameras. Les might be able to explain a little bit, well, a lot better than me, but there's no motion blur. They're just in the picture. They've not travelled from anywhere. And this picture, I believe, is a good bit of proof. It's not proof of alien visitation, people, if anybody thinks that's what I'm saying, but it's proof that we're looking at something highly unusual. So what would happen? You're the cameraman, Les. What would happen in a photograph such as that? 20-second?
Yeah, I mean, 29 seconds is a long time. And obviously, people know. I mean, people in the stream will know this, is that the longer you have that shutter open, the more light is collected onto that sensor. So whatever is out there, did they actually see anything with the naked eye, Paul?
Yeah, they could see them. I've just said 9 seconds in, one sphere appeared. Well, I can't remember the exact time frame. So 15, 16 seconds, a second one appeared, and they're watching them. Just before
right. I thought there was just
they watch these things appear. Yeah. But I think what the photograph proves is that these things didn't fly from anywhere, because if they did, over that 29-second time span, you would have seen that track. There's nothing, and I've got the photograph. He's given me the raw image, so brilliant, No,
that's good. I've just to stay with the lights then, Paul.
Oh, God.
Get me out of here is asking, were the lights you saw over the walls orange too?
Yes. Yeah, and I think my daughter's in chat room as well, and Jessica, and when she just finished university, so she'll remember year, I can't, but I think it might have been around 2007, 2008. She came up onto walls with me, and I was actually filming one of these spheres of light, and it weren't quite dark, and she's talking about, oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. And then she starts, there's one moving along corn, and that was blue. So I've just said yeah to orange, but that was blue, moving along top at corn. So interesting. And Jess saw that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Anybody got an explanation for what these are? We're all ears.
Yeah, I'm going to put this one on. You might know about this, or you may not know about it, Paul. Eddie Blackmore is asking, Paul, I sent you a YouTube link for the Cook Report TV show 1987 about unexplained power surges and lights. Did you see that?
I haven't looked at it yet, Ed. And thank you for sending it me. And honestly, I've just swamped with stuff, to be honest with you. But I seem to remember this any-old, this Cook Report one. Yeah. And I'm not sidetracking what you've just said, Aid, but I was speaking to somebody yesterday, ex-military, who was going to come with some information about blue lights whilst he were in Afghanistan. That none of the military personnel who he was with, including superiors, could explain what they were. So we might move from East Yorkshire to Afghanistan for half an hour in next week or two. So
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, see if I could get him on here, it would be really good.
There's a general question then. Keith Ladd, what do you think about the Phil Schneider and the Dulce alien wars?
I know a little bit about it, but if Rev wants to touch on it, have you got any info on that?
Just that he was some sort of engineer that got given access to top level alien infrastructure technology. On one occasion when he was down in these tunnels, which he claims you can get from one side of America to the other in seconds. And these bad aliens keep breaking into it, and he ended up losing end of his hand, didn't he? Or something like that.
He lost half of his hand. But now I'm full respect to Phil Schneider, because obviously he's been passed away a long time, I had no connection to him at all. But I have heard that he just lost it in an electrical accident. But that's not forced to be the case. It could be exactly what he's saying. He talked about these high-speed rails underground into and this machine that sort of, there were a word for it, like
flagellator, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
The rock and what does it do?
It melted it, didn't it?
Molten and creates a tunnel. It sounds proper sci-fi, doesn't it? And
it sort of melted it as you went along and created the tunnel from the melting rock, I guess, was what he was saying.
I mean, here we are talking about this stuff. Here we are talking about Wolfland's talking about these spheres of light. Who's to say that what Phil Schneider talked about weren't entirely correct? You know, I'm sorry, I can't give you tons of information on that, Keith.
Well, he did talk about attempts on his life.
Right.
There's one interview that I saw where I think that morning, he claimed that he'd been in a shootout with some FBI agents before he was on stage, and he actually had a bullet in his shoulder and all the rest of it. So he claimed he was being victimized and persecuted by the government. I don't know what happened, how he died. Maybe I have to look into that, but it's certainly very interesting.
Yeah.
And what he's kind of saying is it's actually, it's possible to do that. There are examples of melting rock forts. I think there's some in Cornwall from the Iron Age where the stone's been melted in a big fire and it's kind of welded itself together. So it is possible to do.
So they created what puzzles me, and I agree. You're saying it's possible, and that will have happened. But what puzzles me is if they've got this technology, and we're struggling to build high-speed rail links in places around the world, and we show how long it took to do the Channel Tunnel. Why aren't we using technology like this? Do you know what I mean?
That's because we aren't them.
Well,
I guess
good point.
Is the bottom line in it. If we were them, then we would be, but we're not.
Yeah.
We just get a little bit of technology given to us every now and then to make us feel like we've achieved something.
Yeah. Because they're giving us something. Yeah.
Okay, I got a question from Richard. Have you seen Ben from 401 Files recent Big Cat / cryptid footage? If so, what do you think? I've
not seen it, if I'm being truthful. I imagine that this has been filmed. I don't know whether Ben will have filmed it. Richard, has he filmed it?
Yeah, I've seen it. He was having a wander through a wood and just happened on it. So as he's walking up, coming out of this wood, he spots a black cat-looking figure, dog-type figure, and it shoots out from under this hedge and across this cut stubble field. So he chases after it, but you don't see much of it. But it doesn't move like a dog. It looks like a pig to me, the way it's moving.
Yeah.
And I think that it looks maybe like there's a team of either forestry workers or farmers, gamekeepers, whatever, that are coming along, which may have flushed it out. And so yeah, it's interesting. It definitely doesn't look like a dog. That's for certain. So he's definitely got something interesting there. Yeah.
And it makes sense then in a way, doesn't it? But, assuming it were a boar, because people are reporting them, aren't they? There was one report on Bempton Lane leading out of Bridlington a few years ago, and he said it were a wild boar that ran in front of him. And then, I don't know, it were a few weeks later, I think somewhere in Scarborough, newspaper reported somebody had seen one. I suppose these things escape or they get released into wild.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I mean, they're pretty. I think what happens is people, they get a little farm, little small holding, and they like to get, we'll get a few pigs, few sheep, and wild boar for the last 10 years have been quite a niche thing to have on your sort of small holding. So yeah, they dig and they get out, and yeah, if you don't keep on top of the pen, they're out and away and causing all sorts of mischief. So,
and they're fast, aren't they? They're really, so.
Yeah, they can move. But yeah, if you have a look at it, it's interesting.
Yeah, I will do. I'll have a look. Yeah,
I haven't seen it myself. I'll have a look. Yeah. Right, I've got a question from Tetra Static. Have any of you guys watched any of the Custodian Files channel? And if so, what are your thoughts?
I'm sorry, I haven't watched them, so no.
No, I haven't either, so I don't know about that.
Yeah, don't know if that's probably a YouTube channel they're talking about. Yeah, I haven't seen it, so can't be any wiser on that one, I'm afraid. Tetra Static,
great name.
Yeah, so Patricia Adams, right? These planes remind me of the Penturk incident.
That's Kaz Clark and her story. We've had her on. We ought to get her back on live stream really to see whether she's got any new information. And I can't remember the date of her incredible sighting or the incident that she's been digging into. But yeah, there's similarities, I suppose, Pat.
Well, it is a good one. You might not want to watch this one, Paul. I'll just put it up for the Reverend, everybody on the stream.
Oh, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? I don't think I'd accept it, Nigel. I don't think it's going to happen either. We would just I tell you what, we're all in this together. Everybody in this chat, everybody who's not just truth proof, everybody who's searching for answers. Only thing I can't stand are your experts, who the self-anointed experts.
Right, I'll leave now then, Paul. I'll leave now. Thank you. Right, okay, then we'll move on. Let's see what else we've got. I've got this one. I ain't pre-read this one, so Octopus Rad. What types of dogmen are reported around Brid, as I've seen accounts with and without tails? Now that's interesting.
It's what a crazy, not you, Octopus Rad, but what a crazy thing to be discussing. The people that have seen these things on cliff tops, I know that the military guys only claim to have seen something from looking at them from the front. They didn't hang around to have and walk around back of it to see. You know, we're speaking, fingers crossed, we're speaking to a lady who saw something with a friend, unusual, up at Speeton. And she described whatever it was looking like a hyena. Strange that the guys literally 2 miles away in 2019, I think it was February 7th, 2019, described it as looking like a hyena. You know, but, you know, when you say type, I don't know. I know that there's a lot of people saying, oh, there's different types. I suppose it's like we've got different types of human, different coloured skin, I don't know. You know,
there seems to be a baboon type seems to crop up quite a lot. So that long baboon snout, that seems to be one of the things, doesn't it? The cartoon stylized face seems to come up quite a lot, where they talk about, you know, like Wildy Coyote, that one as well.
That came into my mind as you were saying that. Then, you know, we know that one of the guys in North Yorkshire, the three saw it, but he described it. He said it. If you would have asked me, his words were, if you would have asked me to draw a werewolf, I wouldn't have drawn that. And I said, why? He said, because it looked ridiculous. Ears were too long. He says, and when it turned to right, its nose, well, Les heard him say it was just ridiculously long. The muzzle. All things really that kind of beat down your account and leave you open to ridicule. But at the same time, these, because I'm hand on heart, I've said it before, I'll jump straight off the fencing with these guys and say, I believe they're telling truth. I mean, I took this don't make it right, people, but a good friend of mine who was a police officer in Forest, and he grilled them nicely, but all night about what they'd seen, because his words were, unless I've seen it with my own eyes, I don't believe it. So end at night, I said, well, what do you think then? I'll not say his name. And he went, like I told you before, unless I see it with my own eyes, I don't believe it. He says, but do I believe they're telling truth? Yeah, I do. So, you know, it's a strange one.
Oh, here's a good one. This is from Shane Winfro.
Yes, Paul, I have, yeah.
Yeah, have you heard about the North Yorkshire Yeti from 1970 to 1980s?
I think you have as well, Rev, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think we're looking at the same thing as what some of these people in Forest are seeing. What's your views?
Well, I think the what was referred to as the Yorkshire Yeti came about just after the Second World War.
Right.
And there was a lot up around there, so around Gothland area, there was a lot of sheep killed and taken. And this large white figure had been seen. And then the same over at Ingleton way. They did massive. I think they got a few villagers together and they all went out and combed the moor. Didn't find anything, but they came across at Rosedale, so where the lead mines out or the iron mines out at Rosedale. They found the body of a German spy that had been dumped down there, and it turned out that he'd taken cyanide. And funny enough, at Ingleton, they found another body down a cave, and he was a German spy. So,
how long have they been there then?
I'm not sure. I'm sure it was around sort of 46, 47. So, yeah, they must have only been in there a couple of years at most.
Yeah, it's strange that they're looking for something absolutely off the scale as regard weirdness, and then they come across last thing they'd expect to find. You know what I mean? It's
but to find it twice,
yeah,
in both areas that you're searching is just strange.
I noticed that I can't remember where it came up, but one of the questions earlier on about Phil Schneider, threats to his life and things.
Yeah,
and I did a bit of work with Tony Dodd years ago, and Tony, who we've sort of put some of his work into Wolflands, but it were regarding XS894, the Lightning that crashed in September 1970. And what I found fascinating was that I'd got new information on this aircraft, and I shared it with Tony, and he said, I'd love to work with you on this, but I don't want to do it publicly because I've had death threats, or threats to his life, should we say? Yeah. So that kind of, he liked the limelight, he liked doing the circuit, he liked doing conferences and that.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to get involved in that anymore because of the attention that it had brought upon him in the past, I would think, So fascinating. And there's still mileage in that aircraft that were lost tragically on September 8th, 1970. And no, I'm not going to say it were alien related. But all I will say is there were lots and lots of UFO activity around the same time. Absolutely prolific with UFO activity. What are you doing? Come on. Oh, he's there. Right, sorry. Go on.
He can't jump on.
He can jump. He can jump.
He got there eventually.
He's a trained machine. He's brilliant. Hey, Bob.
He's a sex machine, Les. I tell you, he loves my leg.
Yeah. He really liked. You like Jeff, didn't? Yeah. Get down then. One. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Patricia Adams. Right. Do you think the significance of 3 could be to do about a triangulation?
As regards the spheres punching into 3 and things, I don't know because they're not looking. If you're talking about the actual triangle, because 3 of anything can form a triangle, but they're talking about rows of 3. Have I got this question wrong, Rev? Les, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, the prominence of 3
do you mean the location, triangulation of location?
I think Pat's meaning just in general, because the 3, like you say, can form a triangle. That seems to be quite a common form. I was sort of wondering, is the symbology of having 3, because obviously that has connotations in religious and spiritual aspects, so it can play to that. But then it's also, if you think about one light isn't very intimidating, 2 lights slightly more, but when you've got 3 or 5, and every time there's an odd number, it seems to be bigger. So when maybe it's part of the camouflage or part of whatever it's doing for that reason, because it certainly seems to make it more interesting when it's 3.
Oh, we had a doubt. Yeah, I mean, we've seen them as spot on. Yeah, when they multiply, should we say, we get a little bit more elated.
Mark Anderson is asking, can I ask, are the orange lights, are they always seen over water? I saw that 7 years ago over Dundee. That's interesting.
Well, answer to that, Mark, is no. We started off looking at these spheres of light on the wolds around Cottam and Weaverthorpe and those areas, and I'd like to bet that they were showing over at sea back then. But that's where a farmer contacted me from Staxton and told me that he'd been observing these lights. And when I met up with him, he'd got cameras trained on roads that goes from Sledmere. He'd got them all over the place on cams. But that's why myself and Steve Ashbridge used to spend years up there, to be honest with you. Obviously not years are solid, but on evenings and when we'd got spare time. So no, not just over water. And I don't think they're always orange as well, but primarily you hear a lot of people with UFO reports talking about seeing orange spheres of light. I don't know what the significance of the orange is, but there you go.
Right. Here's a good question, actually. Margaret Webster is asking, do you think all the conflicts in the world
this is like
can cause increased activity?
Maybe. Human emotion, maybe. I've just lifted my mic so you can see me a cat. Sat watching me at back there. So, well, maybe, yeah, and it's charged emotions, conflict in world. Who can say? I mean, maybe this intelligence that's not necessarily from outer space, but is already here. Maybe it's interested in what we're doing and fascinated that the fact that all this species, which is humans, seem to want to do is destroy each other. I'd be interested, wouldn't you?
Well, maybe it's the increase in sightings that's causing the conflict.
Well, yeah. Who can say? I mean, God knows what we're doing with technology. But it's a good question. I haven't got an answer to it.
Well, I mean, if you look at it historically, from the First World War, there was a lot of paranormal. Like people would see their relative that was at war walk across the bottom of the bed. That was reported lots of times, and then the following day they'd be told that they were killed in an action that, you know what I mean? So they'd just died. So the paranormal activity during the First World War was more spirits and ghosts, and then in the Second World War we started getting the Foo Fighters and the lights and the UFOs, but not just over Britain, but across Europe, across America. So, and I guess that was the biggest sort of thing, the biggest war going on, wasn't it? So that seems to happen. But then is it a case of that's happening because we're doing that, or is it a case of they're doing something to make that happen?
Yeah. Well, can I just can I just throw a bit of a spanner in the works there, Rev? How do you account for all these like cave paintings when people interpret certain shapes as flying objects, and obviously Renaissance paintings or paintings from 300, 400 years ago, where they've got these objects drawn in, painted into the picture?
Some of the grandmasters.
Yeah, well, that's very true, Les. I mean, not just from tribes, but there's accounts of before battles. So before, the Battle of Agincourt, there were lights seen in the sky. Before Constantine the Great took Rome, he saw a cross and lights in the sky.
And they described them as crucifixes and shields, didn't they, in the sky and things?
That's right, yeah. So they saw that as a positive omen that they were going to win. So it goes back, like the sailors,
And you see all that symbology in ancient hieroglyphs, don't you, from all around the world, from these pyramids and Egyptian pyramids and Mayan.
In South America, I think isn't there even a case in one of the pictures actually depicts a spaceman, if I remember correctly, somebody in a space suit.
There's been a lot of debate over that, hasn't there, over the years? But
tell you what's fascinating. I'd not really thought about it until this question just came up. But a lot of greatest artists of the world, and Les sort of ties in with what Les has just said. I've painted what looked like little UFOs into their artwork. And I think it was Mike Kelland once again and said, and he didn't break new ground with it. I think a lot of people have realised sometimes after somebody's had an experience, be it UFO related or alien related or even a miracle type religious experience, they become very gifted at art or writing, and they just become absorbed in it. And it makes you wonder if some of these greatest artists that have from over the years and years have actually painted these UFOs into their pictures because they've been inspired, and that maybe has helped them along the way. Because why would they paint what look like UFOs in pictures if it weren't something really special? And because it doesn't actually belong in the picture most of the time, it's just there, just this random object. So yeah, it's funny, good directions to go off in with that question, Les.
Yeah, right then. We have a super chat in from Danny Egan, £5. Great show again, Les. Paul, Les, Rev. Big shout out to Keith Ladd. And
thank you very much.
Thanks for the super chat.
Thank you, and big shout out to Keith.
And yeah, let's have a look then. And talking of Keith Ladd. Does the panel think there could be alien bases at the South Pole? That's a good question.
Well, all we're doing, Keith, is speculating. So I don't know. I suppose it's possible. There's been talk of things like that in the past, but you know, I couldn't say any more than that. Any more than there's an alien base in the North Sea. You know, you can speculate and think there's a lot of things seen out there, and people see things entering and leaving the sea. Possibility. Any views before we?
Yeah, well, I'll just add there that it's got a fly, no zone fly over there. You can't fly over the Antarctic. You can't even approach it, and so that obviously fuels their conspiracy, and things. I don't know. Probably can get out of hand in the way you're interpreting things, but who knows?
Okay. Well, there's. It sort of goes back to Admiral Byrd, doesn't it, and his expedition in 1946, I think it was. So the Nazis, a lot of, I think there was 3 or 4 U-boats that they'd seen or picked up on radar, whatever, heading to Antarctica after the war. So they decided to send a fleet to go and have a look, and they discovered a secret Nazi base within Antarctica. And then there's all sorts of amazing stories and accounts that come from Admiral Byrd's diary, where he claims that he took a plane and flew across Antarctica and came across into more land than you could possibly, more than America. He couldn't describe it. And then I think he flew into a tunnel. There were pyramids. There was all sorts of, and this land was supposed to have been grass. It was not ice. It was like lush pasture. And then he came back, and I think he died in some strange accident. But that's the story there. And then, like Les is saying, you can't go to Antarctica. So there's the Antarctic Treaty, which every country or all the major countries in the world are signed up to, and everybody agrees that the emissions have to stay to a certain level and all that sort of stuff to try and keep it pristine. So if you want to go to Antarctica, you can't just get in a boat and sail there. You have to get onto the Antarctic Treaty Board, and the only way that you can really go there is getting hooked up with a scientific expedition that's already going there, and they'll only let you go to certain places. They won't let you just wander off and do what you want to do. So, but you can do that at the North Pole. You're more than welcome to go do that at the North Pole.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and you would think with current climate, and I don't mean climate as in weather, way things are in world, that some of these countries that are hostile towards us would have broke that treaty if they thought there was something to gain. So what's holding them back? It's fascinating.
It is, isn't it? There's obviously something that they don't want the general public to see, and I don't think it's just because they want to keep it as a pristine wilderness. There's also the possibility that it might not be as we've been told, where it's at the bottom of the ocean or bottom of the world, and it might in fact be an ice belt and where land within that, and there's more land beyond that. So depending on which side of the theory you want to go on, and bearing in mind that nobody has ever been far enough away from the Earth to look back on it and show you that it's round. So
of course, we'll never get lied to, do we?
No, that doesn't happen.
No, we never get lied to. So, Patrick Daniel, hi Patrick.
When was the last cryptid reported in the area, Paul?
Good point. I would think 2020. There may be something else, and you know, I'm going to do it, Patrick. What you saw about a month ago. We've just put it on as a short, everybody, if you want to, or if I haven't, I've posted it to Les. I don't know whether it's gone on yet. So it'll be going on. I've just done a little number on what you saw, and I can't believe that. Oh, it is. It's on, isn't it? The coincidence that I went to speak about, or to hear Patrick talk about orange spheres of light on Danes Dyke, and because the sun was setting, I couldn't film him with his back to the dike. I thought that'd look better, so I went onto the dike, and I did this last week, so I remember now. And he saw something moving along the ground and just descending to the earth. You know, am I gullible? Am I such a gullible fool that I believe everybody? No, I'm not. There's loads of people talk to me about things, but this guy didn't even want to talk about it. He was shocked when he saw it. And I'd got my camera set up, and I said, "Are you going to tell us about it on film?" It would have been great because he was that dumbfounded by what he'd seen. So I'm talking about you as though you're in the second person here, Patrick, and I know you're listening. So I apologize, but it kind of tells you he weren't after no publicity with that. And yeah, it's great sighting. Was that a cryptid? I don't know what it was. It was like a strange shaped block of brown that descended into the ground. But I just think about the coincidence. We were there to talk about and look and discuss something unexplained. And where we'd been stood looking across at where he saw it, we were now stood at where he saw it, looking across at where we'd just been stood. Am I making sense? And that's where we saw it. Fascinating. So, yeah.
Okay, right. We've got a super chat in. Cole has contributed £10. Thank you very much. Only this team can uncover the truth. I haven't had any red wine, honest.
Right, we owe you a glass of red wine. Thank you.
So I'll have a drink to that. Whoever asked me what I was drinking tonight, it's wrote on the glass. Yeah, Guinness, yeah.
Very good.
And I think it was this question. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Is that Guinness you're drinking, Les? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just tea for me today. Tea.
So a little bit of housekeeping before we forget, Paul. Your website is called, I ain't got it on the screen at the moment.
Right, it's truthproof.uk, and obviously.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's in the banner at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're interested in the Truthproof books, there's a couple showing behind me covers. You can get them on that website, truthproof.uk, and if you want to buy the DVD Wolflands, you can also get that. And I don't mean hurry up and get it, but you'll save a bit on postage because I haven't altered postage rates. Yeah. Unbelievably, it's gone up 35 pence to send one DVD. That's not right. 45 pence it's gone up to send a book. I haven't changed postage rates yet, but it's nuts, isn't it?
But don't forget, people, for anybody who's just new to this channel, we do have a film on Amazon, as you can see behind me. You can buy or rent on there. The wolf is, as Paul just said, it's called Wolflands. And we've got some good reviews in, Paul.
There's some great reviews, and thankful to everybody that's kind of supported us and stayed the course, because we were finishing it, we thought, about 2 years ago, but we finally got there, didn't we? But yeah, all good, and onwards and upwards. We're on with the second one now, and
I had to buy a new packet of razors. I thought I'd do it all in that first pack, but I didn't.
Yeah. I see Joel Burgess is in, and he's given us some great information, to be honest with you. So Chris Evers is in Outer Limits magazine. Thanks for the review, Chris. He gave us a great review for Wolflands.
I forgot to mention that.
And I'll pay you that tenner later, Chris, for review. And but no, all good. And we got a great review from 40 Times as well. And
question on the screen. Yeah,
go on then.
Cool. Have the UK government ever acknowledged the existence of the orange orbs seen all over the UK? Good question.
In a word, I'd say no. But, because I mean, even if we use a government body like Maritime Coast Guard Agency, they're in the logs. And sorry to sound like a broken record, but when you've got multiple lifeboat agencies asked to go and investigate these lights over the sea, and they spend 7 and 9 hours searching for them, and during the searches they're actually seeing them, and then they all return back to their lifeboat stations, and in the log it'll say false alarm with good intent. There's no explanation for it. What were they? Come on, give us an explanation, because we know that they've been seen. You know why they don't want to? Because we're not saying it's alien visitation, but it's a genuine unknown, and they don't want to acknowledge that fact. And I'm not just meaning Coast Guard agency. I'm on about government bodies as a whole. They don't want to acknowledge that they have got no idea what these things are.
But I mean, I think this is where we're a bit sloppy as the public, and your representatives in Parliament are definitely sloppy, because if these things are obviously breaking into our airspace, and it could be a military threat.
Consider they're not. Who can say that they're not a threat? Yeah, you're right.
Well, the official stance up until this year was that there are UFOs entering our airspace that we can't stop, but they're of no threat. So therefore, we're not looking into it. That was what the official stance was from. I think that was the American standpoint and our standpoint. So yeah, they admitted there was something there, but they weren't interested because it didn't pose a threat. So
unless they know what they are, that implies they must know what they are if they don't pose a threat.
Definitely.
Because how would you, if so interesting.
Well, it's like somebody pulling a battleship that's disguised as a giant swan into New York Harbor, innit? And then going, well, it looks all right. We'll just leave it. We won't bother checking it out.
It's not a threat.
Not a threat. No. Big cannon sticking out of it.
Yeah.
CDAV555 is asking, of the reported sightings of cryptids or UFOs you deal with, what percentage would you say are during the day versus nighttime?
Early evening. Well, somebody asked when the last one was, and I'd have said I think it was 2020 along cliff tops, and that were early evening. But most of, I mean, the UFO reports, I don't think there's a day or a night. It could be sheer virtue of the fact that these things are bright orange, and when they're showing up in nighttime, you're seeing them against a dark sky. That you see, you tend to see them more. But as regards the UFOs, I'd have said any time of the day people are seeing them. But whatever it is, all of this is, it's a secretive kind of thing, because it wants to show up in remote areas, on lonely roads, in forests where there's next to no one about. It wants to show up in places where being seen or being, what's the word?
It's trying to be elusive. It's trying to be elusive, isn't it?
Elusive. Yeah. But then again, is it elusive? But I agree with you. But I went to Caton today to Sarah's, my daughter's, or we did, and on the way back we drove back Hummonby way. And now, as I'm driving along through Flixton and Folketon, we come to what's called Whitegate Hill. I've got 3 reports from Whitegate Hill of this thing jumping into road. That's not coincidence. There's literally fields and bit of woodland for miles either side of it. Yet whatever it is, on a night time, there's got a car with headlights on it, chooses to jump in front of a car. One of the reports, I think I talked about it a few months ago, it actually was stood at the side of the road and set off running at the side of a man's car. Where did it run to? It ran to about as far as Whitegate Hill. He was coming from Muston. Then he lost it. It went down into fields. He said he thought it were covered in twigs, but realizes now he thinks it were all matted, sludged up fur. You can choose to believe this or not, people. I'm only reporting what people are telling me, and bulk at time I speak to them face to face, and that don't make them absolutely 100% that they're telling the truth. But most of people who want to come and speak to you face to face and want to go to location with you, they're on the level, most of them, I would think.
Okay, I'm conscious of the time now, guys. Danny, it's an incredible documentary. Thanks, Danny, for that comment. Much appreciated. Let's have a look then. Joel Burgess, question for Paul. How do you feel about doing a Halloween meet-up at Danesdyke?
I picture we couldn't do a live stream, but I don't think there's any signal there, Joel. I'm not sure. I mean, you'd know better than us, because I know you spend quite a bit of time there.
Yes, it's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are into October, and I note that a few of these sightings around Danes Dyke were October. What are we on to? We're October 8th. October 20th. On 2 years, we had 19th and 20th, I think, which was interesting. Separate accounts, different people.
I want to get 2 questions in, guys, and I think
go on. Let's have one for Rev. See what.
Okay. Terry Brown, far past midnight. Paul, have you looked into the Paul Devereaux work about burial mounds, lights, ancient death roads? Very interesting.
I've got the book. I've never read it. I know he's written a book. I can't even think what they call it, but I have got the paper back by this guy. I'm glad you could pronounce his surname, Les, because I wouldn't have been able to. Devereaux, is it? Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. And the one last question for tonight. And thanks everybody for coming onto the stream tonight. And we kind of do a relaxed interactive, as you probably know by now. I think this is our 4th one, isn't it, Paul? Yeah. So I hope you're enjoying it, actually. Right. It's from Chris Evers.
Excellent.
And Outer Limits Magazine. Question: does the panel believe mankind went to the moon after Apollo 11's 1969 landing?
I'm just going to hand that to Rev, unless you don't want to.
No, I'll quite happily tear into this one. I don't even think they got there in 1969, Chris. I think that's the biggest psyop that they've ever pulled on people in public. They've lost all the reason why they haven't been back. So NASA claim that they've had 24 astronauts on, in space out of our Earth orbit, but they can't do that again because they've lost all the paperwork as to how to make the equipment from then, and they can't reverse engineer it because it's going to cost too much. So they've just given up and we're not going to bother anymore. So no, I don't think we've ever been to the moon. I think if we have been to the moon, then it's within our orbit. It's not in space. There's an awful lot of unanswered questions, or the answered questions, but the wrong answers for them. So, yeah.
I'll just echo what Rev says, really. That's all, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. And that's probably the last question, is it?
I might get one more just came in after I announced it was the last question, and it's from Carl Dan. Paul, which part of Danes Dyke has the most reported activity, north, south, or central? This will be the last question of tonight.
If you go to south side, and I've got anglers' reports of things frightening them to death in the little sort of cutting where the dyke runs through. But if you go to the side where not a lot of people go, before you actually turn into Danes Dyke, there's the other side of the road. That's the other half of Danes Dyke. I'm not even sure if it's private, but I don't think there's a sign up saying you can't go in. That's where there's a lot of activity. That's where a lot of strangeness seems to occur. And that you follow that one all the way through then to the north side, and that's on that ridge where I was with Patrick Daniel about a month ago talking about his strange anomaly. But yeah.
On that note, guys, thanks for that. Hey, interesting questions tonight, guys.
It's great. I like the questions. It just mixes it up a bit, doesn't it? And thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Really do, yeah. So anybody who hasn't subscribed to the stream, to the channel, I should say, please subscribe now. Press like and every other thing that you need to do for YouTube to get the notifications through. Really appreciate it if you could do that.
Yeah.
So from me then, it's good night.
Well, yeah, sound like 2 Ronnies here, and good night from me. That's 3 Ronnies anyway.
And good night from them too.
Yeah. And Carl Dan, thanks for your last question, mate. All good. Thank you.
Yeah,
See you next week.
See you all next time. Okay. Bye.
Bye.